Hello, Global Entrepreneurship Week participants. I'm thrilled to be part of this virtual entrepreneurship conference. I'm Dr. Ryan Wakim. I'm a board certified psychiatrist here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I've been asked to speak with you a little bit about some tips and tricks around mental health awareness and coping in the workplace. As an entrepreneur, as I mentioned myself, having started a mental health practice in 2013, which has quickly grown to over 100 employees and over 6 locations in the region, I totally understand the need for mental health awareness and the insights and tips around those, most of which we use with our own team right here in the Pittsburgh area. Right now, there's an exceptionally long wait to see mental health providers all over the country because of the pandemic. In spite of the fact we've been able to shift and do a lot of technology-based telepsych, teletherapy services, the reality is the sheer number of people who need help right now is just stressing the system that we have in place. So, unfortunately, in spite of the improved access through technology, there just tends to be longer wait times as we uh, work our way through the extremely high demand. The stigma around mental health that generally doesn't exist around more physical health related issues stems from many decades and years of not understanding mental health conditions and the causes thereof. Going back into the 1800s, 1900s, individuals, it was thought to be a character flaw when you struggled with a mental health condition. Again, because we didn't understand the brain, we didn't understand the neurotransmitter systems, we didn't understand the science behind mental health, which is very different today. We understand a lot more about the brain and how it works and how it interacts with the body and causes physical health symptoms. So the current stigma or the perception of the stigma around mental health stems from many, many decades of not understanding it. But this is a new era, and in this day and age, it's not only reasonable, it's encouraged to seek mental health care because it directly impacts your physical health care as well. As mental health awareness continues to improve over time, I think the most common myth that I'd want to dispel is that we don't understand the brain or that we don't know or have science behind the treatments we provide. There's a lot of individuals that don't seek help for mental health because it's often viewed as a character flaw or this sorcery or there's some sort of lack of scientific knowledge around what we're doing. The reality is we know more about the brain now than we ever have, and we have treatments now that are highly effective with very few side effects. And so the biggest myth I would want to dispel at this time is that we can't treat someone who has a mental health condition as well as we treat someone who has diabetes. That's just not the case. In my professional experience, the biggest roadblock individuals have in dealing with their depression and anxiety is taking the first step to reach out for help. There's a lot of people that will struggle for far too long and allow their condition to get far too poorly controlled before actually seeking help or being mandated to seek help or being encouraged by a family member to seek help. Whereas had we intervened earlier on, there's a better chance of better outcomes moving into the future. So the first step, or the most important step, in my opinion, for anyone dealing with these conditions, is to take that first step in reaching out for help. Social media is absolutely a double-edged sword. It's done a lot for our community and our profession in allowing people to have better understanding of uh, different mental health conditions, to raise awareness and to reduce stigma. On the flip side, social media is also can feed into some of those depression and anxiety symptoms. It can lead you down, rabbit holes and paths that your mind really struggles to comprehend. So the plus or the positive of social media is the awareness piece and educating the public and providing resources that people would otherwise not have. Uh, again, balance out with the negatives being the simple fact that sometimes social media can really exacerbate someone's anxiety or lead them down paths of worsening mental health issues. As a society, in terms of trying to reduce the prevalence of substance use disorders, first and foremost goes back to what I was saying before, which is reaching out for help. People often turn to substances of abuse like alcohol, or even worse, things like heroin or cocaine, as a means to self-medicate, whether they've had a history of trauma or chaotic childhood, or whatever the case may be. Substances tend to become a maladaptive or poor coping mechanism for an underlying issue. So, getting back to what I said before, reducing the stigma and taking the first step for getting help earlier in that um, continuum will allow for improved outcomes and fewer incidences of substance use disorder of all kinds into the future. In looking at children versus adults with mental health concerns or issues, there's not one that's any harder to treat than the other. It's just understanding that they will present themselves differently. If you've listened to one of our recent podcasts, we touch on that exact point, meaning children who have depression or in bereavement or have anxiety will present themselves with very different symptoms or issues than an adult who has a little different mental or cognitive capability to either cope or to express those concerns. So treating one versus the other, I mean, there's no easy or hard. It just comes down to understanding what it looks like at different ages and then how you get the help you need at those ages. If you're someone who may struggle with a mental health condition but don't maybe have the insurance or the resources to pay for that treatment, there are specific organizations and nonprofits that can absolutely provide for some of that care. It's often referred to as a community mental health center. So if you looked up a community mental health center in your area, there's a very good chance they can provide you care either at little to no cost. Academic institutions often also have resources to provide care in spite of not having the funds or not having the insurance to bill for that care directly. So, in order to become a psychiatrist, the training includes high school degree, a college degree. From there, you go into medical school. Medical school is a 4-year program. Everyone graduates from medical school as a physician, but then you find your specialty. You're in the process of medical school. You determine which specialty you're going to go into, and then after those 4 years of postgraduate, meaning post college education as being medical school, you then have either a 3 to 8 year residency that then could follow up into additional subspecialty training, which is called a fellowship. To be a psychiatrist specifically, it's high school, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and 4 years of residency. Uh, After which you can sit for your boards, and then if you pass, your test, then you become a board certified psychiatrist like myself. So it's a very common misunderstanding in today's society that psychologists and psychiatrists are one and the same. Not good, bad, or indifferent. Simply put, psychologists are PhDs in psychology. They traditionally are involved with either neuropsychiatric testing or therapy services. Whereas a psychiatrist, by definition, is someone who's gone to medical school, got in either an MD or a DO, and then went on to residency and training to become a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists in this day and age really tend towards procedural based psychiatry like TMS or ECT, or psychopharmacology, prescription based treatment. So, psychologists, PhD, therapy services, neuropsychological testing. Psychiatrists are physicians who tend to dive more into the pharmacology or drugs and or procedural. That said, psychiatrists can also perform therapy services. So different but similar through two very different paths. As I mentioned earlier, a psychiatrist is someone who's finished medical school and is, in fact, a physician. It's important to delineate the fact that there are two different credentials as being a physician. One type of medical school graduates medical doctors or MDs, but there's another type of medical school that graduates doctors of osteopathy or DOs. Traditionally speaking, DOs were more involved with holistic care, um, and algorithms thereof, whereas MDs were the more traditional physician. But in this day and age, they really are considered the same in terms of education level, clinical competency, and careers. You won't really see a difference in this day and age between the two. But in the past, someone might go the route of a DO if they were more inclined to a more holistic medicine technique. And for those who weren't more holistically inclined, they would traditionally go to more of an MD uh, medical school. In today's day and age, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about technology as part of entrepreneurship and growth, even specifically in the mental health space. You know, nowadays we often will use telehealth, telepsychiatry to engage with patients on a regional and national basis, breaking down the barrier to care and improving healthcare outcomes. So, yes, technology can assist in many different ways. It may even be a headache for some. But again, in our field specifically, it can really help to reduce barriers and improve access to care, both locally and nationally. I hope these insights have been helpful for you and your team. If there's anything we can do to help you, please don't hesitate to find us on some of our social channels listed below or through our podcast, Mental State, wherever you get your podcasts. Don't hesitate to contact the office, whether it's for yourself or your team. And hey, maybe we can even use some telehealth to help one of you.
All right. Good morning, entrepreneurs and supporters of entrepreneurs. We will begin our program in about 5 minutes. So we urge you to get comfortable and we will get started shortly with our day. Get mentally fit. Okay, so good morning and welcome to San Marcos, Texas, heart of the innovation corridor and home to a burgeoning number of entrepreneurs. It's no wonder It's no wonder that we're bringing you the collective wisdom of speakers and panels for the next 2 days covering the total health for entrepreneurs. Today, we'll explore our theme Get Mentally Fit and Mental Wellness. Tomorrow, our final day, we'll cover the theme Get Business Fit, along with resources to ensure your business is on course to meet its full potential. My name is Jonafa Banbury, pastor of Commission Ministries, and I will be your host over the next 2 days. I'm also a member of the board and secretary for the Dunbar Heritage Association. I want to be sure you all know about the scavenger hunt we are conducting that will lead to prizes at the end of the week. So make sure you check the chat to view today's scavenger hunt. I want to bring to the stage very soon Ed Rios. We know that mental, physical, and spiritual wellness are interminably intertwined. So it is important to note that we have positioned mental wellness today. We will hear from local father and founder of WillThrive Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to the memory of Ed's son, William, who took his own life last summer. Ed will speak of the heartbreak a parent experiences and he and his wife's frustration at not being able to locate the right kind of services for their son in time. We will also be bringing later spoken word artist and poet Yashi Brown by way of video.
which I am co-founder and CEO. Our foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 located here in San Marcos, Texas. My wife and I started this foundation after our son took his own life. We made it our mission to help teens ages 7 to 17 who are suffering from anxiety disorders. Our goals are to support parents, caregivers, and educators on teen anxiety and depression. We will do this by advocating for and helping provide access to compassionate mental health care services through collaborations with service providers and schools. Finally, we want to destigmatize mental health in our community and beyond. So, the question is, how can we, as entrepreneurs, get mentally fit? Let's lay a foundation for our discussion today. First, these are trying times for all businesses, but especially hit hard during this pandemic are the small to medium sized businesses. The impact for some of us is still to be determined. Technology. We have all had to step up our technology game to some degree as a necessity to survive. Some of us are doing better than others, and some of us must bite our tongue if we are also having to help our children be remote learners. Indeed, technology is probably playing a bigger role in our lives than we ever anticipated, and it's not going away. This forced evolution of how we work will be around after the pandemic gets manageable. The economy is poised to change with political transitions and global impacts. We have been reminded that our economy is connected globally. Even though we are just focusing on selling our widget, we will have to consider our customers' ability or appetite to buy it. We may be susceptible to these outside influences and must figure out how we weather the storm or continue weathering the storm. Can we really balance work and life? If we were not good before, how do we master it now? If you are a remote worker, your worlds may have collided in a bigger way than expected. Finally, how do we measure success for our business today? What has changed, and how do we react to those changes? How you address these foundational perspectives is individual to your business and your approach. Any one of these can bring about stress and anxiety. For the entrepreneur, what can you still control today? We will talk about mental fitness for entrepreneurs in 3 dimensions. First, we will talk about the environment where we work. Next, we will discuss physical activities we can engage in to help us mentally. Last, we will examine our mindset and how we think. You see my daughter here when she was 3 years old. I would tell her, put on your game face, Rosie. By the way, she is 15 now, and as any teenager would, appreciates it when I use her in one of my presentations. If you are a remote worker and work from home, do your best to separate your office space. I know this may not be possible. This is important because it helps you set boundaries, and these boundaries are critical to establishing or enforcing your work-life balance. If you must go into work, try to change something about your office space. Rearranging your office, your cubicle, even changing out the pictures of your kids when they were 3 and are now 15 helps. It may not seem like much, but a change in your work environment can enable a change in how we think. Creating a soothing workspace is also a way to reduce stress and anxiety. As we all know, working on the kitchen table can be the most stressful, especially if you have hungry teenagers who have irregular eating schedules. Sometimes swapping out artwork or photos, like we mentioned, or whatever it is you look at throughout the day while on a video conference call will help. If you have the luxury of a window, maybe moving next to it or having a different angle helps. I have placed bird feeders outside of my window so I can see the birds, or an acrobatic squirrel try to get at the food. Believe me, the squirrel is determined and always entertaining to watch. I think I keep my feeders well stocked just for the squirrel show. What we consume during the day also can play into our state of mind. I know if I eat sweets at lunch and then get on a long conference call in the afternoon, I need to mute my microphone or my peers will hear me snoring. So having a variety of healthy snacks or meal options can be helpful. This can be a challenge at home because you have your whole pantry available. There's plenty of information online. Find something that appeals to your taste buds and stock up. Finally, this is a mental game we are playing. We want to have a normal routine, but if we don't have a way to reinforce the routine, it will go out the door. So creating a log to document your work time is important. This will help you set limits on how long your workday is and indicate that it's time for you to quit. The workday, that is. Many of us will work and work and work. We have to step away, and this is a good way to help us indicate that time. Like any good intention, creating your work log is good, but the value is in using it. You can be tech savvy and use a computer program, or go old school and pick up a physical planner and keep it on your desk. Now let's look at some actions we can take to get mentally fit. Try and make some physical actions part of your day. Get out of your chair every hour, even if it's just a quick stretch. This regular movement will help. If you have a variable height desk, this is the time to go in stand mode. Even a quick 10 to 15 steps away from your workspace can help. Of course, if you are on a conference call, remember to remove your headphones or Get a wireless set to prevent other office desk catastrophes that can occur, like spilling this morning's coffee with my headset still connected. By the way, that happened to a friend. Really. If you can step outside, do it. A breath of fresh air, just once a day, can really do wonders. Winter is coming, so consider temperature. If the weather is cold, it can snap you out of the funk from the back to back calls you were just on. Set a schedule and keep it. We mentioned routines earlier. Getting into a routine is important. Even if your schedule is flexible, try to set blocks of time when you will do a specific activity. For example, I do email follow ups toward the end of the day, usually from 3 to 4. Working from home can be chaotic because we have doorbells and laundry and kids' remote learning and dogs all working against our ability to schedule. It's a challenge, but it should be one you work toward. Getting into a routine means doing things we did before our world changed. Just taking a shower before we start work can help. We are all guilty of dressing up from the waist up just to get on a conference call. We can all put on a baseball cap or tie our hair back because we have not had a haircut or style since February. It happens. Those who go into work still must do this if they interact with people. Those of us working from home should get back to that. You know the schedule we just mentioned? Having everything scheduled is important. If you used to take a walk at lunch, schedule it. If you used to take a morning run, add it to your schedule. Any physical activity you did or want to do, schedule it. Treat it just like you treat a work meeting. This will also help you follow through and actually do it. Learn to say no when appropriate. People will ask and ask and ask of your time. It's okay at work and at home to say no. We can be overwhelmed before we know it, and always playing catch up at work means longer hours. You have a finite number of hours in the day. Just because you are working from home doesn't mean those hours are infinite. Just say no. We used to gather in the break room for water cooler talk, talking about weekends, upcoming trips, new restaurants, anything but work. Bring that back by connecting virtually with a friend or family member for just a few minutes a day. Don't forget to schedule it if you can. This type of connection helps. It is not as satisfying as being in person, but it's still a connection. We must have a mental break and step away from our day job. This is a good way to do it and stay in touch. The person you are talking with will also appreciate it. We mentioned earlier this is a mental game. Indeed, dealing with change is a mental game. Many of us were thrust into a change in how we work and how we do business. Here are some ways to approach the mental game. First, practice gratitude. This means stepping back and looking at all the great things that we do have. Focus on just 3. Do it daily. For example, a job, a business, and customers. Some folks like to journal, and this can be a release or outlet to help focus on what is working. It may sound syrupy sweet, but mentally expressing gratitude starts your day on a positive frame of mind. In tumultuous times, this can give you an advantage. Your worst critic is staring back at you when you look in the mirror. Challenge and overcome the critic. Remember, if we think we are a failure, we eventually become the failure our critic sees. This falls into the power of positive thinking movement, which there are many books and programs that address this. I want to break it down to its simplest form. You can't ignore the negativity that can creep in. You must acknowledge it, embrace it, and move forward with that acknowledgement. Here's a basic exercise. Jot down the good and the bad. Sometimes when you see them on paper, you may see some of the bad is irrational. That is our inner critic trying to outgame us mentally. As I mentioned, this is a challenge. See, I just saved you hundreds of dollars in self-help books. Folks, I'm here all week, and don't forget to tip your waitstaff. Another part of positive thinking is finding success. Since things changed, we have all had to adjust how we do business and how we work. This means our view of success may need to be tweaked. How are we getting new customers? How are we keeping existing customers? If I provide a product or service, how is that delivered during COVID-19? We must still set business goals, but we may need to make them real if they are dependent on technology. If we can make a goal, we get a good feeling. We mentally get a win. Business does not stop if there is still demand. We must figure out how we continue to meet and even grow the demand. For me, delayed gratification is always a challenge. I've had to think long term with what I want to acquire. I must put in more or different work or effort to realize the same gain that was easier to obtain back before things changed. Remember, this situation is not going to change in the short term. How do we look down the road? That is the question we need to address. It's easy to blame anyone or anything for our shortcomings or mistakes. Some may be well deserved, but many times we are lashing out because we may be frustrated with ourselves. Try to avoid the blame game. Acknowledge our failings. Learn from them. Blaming others gives others power over us. It can cause us to get stuck because it's someone else's fault. As Yoda says, a path to the dark side, this is. Yes, I am a fan. In short, these are negative thoughts we don't need. If you've never heard of realistic optimism, look it up. It doesn't mean everything is roses all the time. That person who is eternally optimistic can be annoying, and you are imagining that person in your head now. Those people are not rational. Being a realistic optimist means I will face all my challenges, take on the ones I am capable of handling, and accept the ones that are beyond my control. Acceptance can be as simple as scheduling more time to address an upcoming event because it requires complex coordination. Being a realistic optimist goes hand in hand with knowing your limitations. You have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Ask yourself, when do I throw in the proverbial towel? When do I need to ask for help? If you are the head of your business, it may be hard to show vulnerability because your employees feed off of your state of mind. Those leaders that embrace vulnerability take opportunities to learn from them to become better leaders. And as a side note, if you recognized the Clint Eastwood and Kenny Rogers references, or even know who those people are, consider yourself old like me. The last item is a key part of the mental game. How is your competition doing during this time? Maybe it's time to evaluate and possibly appreciate how they have adapted. Your competitor can be your teacher. I won't go into another Yoda voice at this time, no matter how tempting it is. Take a look around and evaluate what is working for those competitors that are successful. How can you adopt their approach? What we are all trying to do is find a way to do business that works. In short, getting mentally fit can take a series of actions to help us adapt to the new normal. What we did before the pandemic may not be what we do now. We must figure out how to keep doing business. The mental game can be stepped up by making changes in our environment, being conscious of our physical activity, and addressing our way of thinking. The WillThrive Foundation is a 501c3, so I ask you to consider us the charity you choose to donate to on Giving Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. Like Black Friday and Small Business Saturday, Giving Tuesday is the day for getting the word out on donation appeals for charities. Thank you for tuning in, and we will now be heading into our fireside chat. Cheers.
Oh, right. Sorry about that. I was talking in mute. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. See, technology is a bugger sometimes. Uh, During these times, I don't know why my audio keeps. Um, but yeah, so I'll go through, and if it keeps muting, I'll keep unmuting, and we'll just work through. Really revolve around taking care of ourselves, and I think we've had several conversations so far this week, and we'll continue throughout today and tomorrow. And one of the other things that's always good that can take you away and give you some mental relief is using this time to try something new. Being home now all the time, or in quarantine, or for a majority of the time, being isolated. This is a time for self-development, and so trying some kind of new activity, some new hobby, reading some books. If you've had a stack of books and you haven't been able to get to them, this is a really good time for doing something like that. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, in trying to just still do the business that we do, is our frustration level is elevated, and for many of us, that may be something that we're not always used to. There are things that would spin us up in the past, that now just an inkling of that spins us up. And I think one of the things that we all need to realize is, it's okay. And it's okay to not be okay during this time. This is a challenging time for all of us. What we need to do is really acknowledge that emotion. That's very important. For a sense of self, but also to give yourself some latitude. Understand that business relationships are really dependent on the relationship piece. So going out on a customer, or going out on a coworker, doesn't always work with your business environment. So realize that if it's something that you need to work through, you know get the emotions under control, take a deep breath, take a walk, take some time away, and then get back to mending or building that working relationship. Um, I think the key to understand is emotions are not wrong. There's nothing wrong about emotions during a time like this that hasn't been around for 100 years. People had to deal with it differently, and we didn't have technology. So it's a different world. Um, the other thing is I hinted at it throughout the presentation, is check in with yourself. It's very important that multiple times a day, you step away, take off the headset, or yelling into your laptop speaker, and just go outside, go pet the dog, go or the cat, or whatever your pet is. um, you know I think I mentioned I have a bird feeder outside my window, and it's nice to look at the different types of birds that are coming through. They're far and few now because we're moving into winter, even though it's a Texas winter, but it's different types of birds left. And my squirrel really enjoys the bird feeder. So but taking a time, just even if it's just 60 seconds in between calls, can really help you out. Just stepping outside your office, if you have the ability to go outside and breathe in a couple of breaths of fresh air, and just make sure that you're not getting overworked, because it's real easy to do. I think one of the things that we're challenged with is separating, especially when we those of us that are remote workers, is separating work time from not work time. And and we have a drive to go through and just do and keep going, and that's what that's what gets us into trouble, because I'm sure our companies appreciate all of the productivity, but the toll it takes on us mentally, the stress level that rises, is because we just don't know how to stop and separate. If you've never been a remote worker and are now a remote worker, one of the struggles you have is not checking your email at 10 o'clock at night and then having to do responses, and you're always on. I always tell fellow workers or peers, make sure you move your workspace that you're working out of your bedroom. It's really easy to set it up. You can work from your bed, a desk in your room, but there's no separation of those office spaces. And I mentioned that in the video, and that's really a key. And if it's possible, try to move that away and shut down. If you shut down at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, it's okay to shut down. Things are going to be there tomorrow. We think because we have so much time, or we're at home, or that we can do some, we can do more, and that doesn't always work for us. We are people who like to have a little bit of a variety of interests to keep us motivated, because then it's easy to get demotivated when you go that way. And I think in my world, I have been in technology for a long time. I retired from Microsoft in 2019 and have been doing technology consulting. And so most of my work at Microsoft was moving people into the digital world. So, that has been accelerated for everybody. And really that is, for some folks, it's overwhelming. If you're not a technology person, having to now be looking at screens and setting up lighting and, trying to talk into your laptop for, more than one day at a time, or multiple days. And, it's challenging. So, I always say, you've got to ask for help sometimes, and sometimes it's available easily. Sometimes sometimes it takes a little bit more. Sometimes it takes an investment, and a lot of companies, especially small to medium sized companies, had to figure out how do they sell how do they move their business to the web, and that is that is mental stress in itself, because you're trying to keep your doors open. And so, that's kind of the challenge that leads to a lot of the mental anxiety that business owners today are facing, especially these small to medium sized businesses. I know here in my community, I've seen a lot of businesses that I knew close down because they couldn't keep up with that, and it's stressful not only for the business owner, but all those employees that they kept working, that had to go and pivot and find new work. It's something that it's not just happening here locally; it's happening all over the place. But stress and mental anxiety are on the rise all over. So I think the biggest issue that we have to face is, this is probably not going to go away anytime soon, and there's going to be some semblance of it that remains. You're probably going to see more people wearing masks when they do start traveling. There's still going to be different types of levels of acceptance of anything that goes to help treat what we're trying to eradicate here. But there's the way corporations are doing business and seeing people being productive from home. There may not be offices to go back to. These are the new realities that we're going to have to come to terms with in some cases. Those of us, are those of you who go into work normally, that's probably not a huge issue for you. But I think one of the things is we just have to be ready to adapt to change, and that in itself can be very stressful. So keep that in mind. I think I also mentioned in the video that you should try to get into a routine as much as you can. if at all possible, do something on a regular basis, because you did before. You got up, you did whatever you did to get ready for work. You went and grabbed a coffee or a breakfast, and you went into work, and you did email, and everybody did their normal thing, because we're creatures of habit. So when you have this almost instantaneous disruption, it was a light on, a light off, and bam, we had to change things the way we work. We were kind of in a free fall, and just being with that level of uncertainty of what does tomorrow look like. Those of us who had a disrupted routine, struggled, and we were getting stressed, we were getting upset, there was uncertainty of our job. All these things play into our mental state of mind. So if you can use a schedule, if you can try to say, okay, this is, and some of you probably have already done that, but if you can get to a point where I'm going to do this, I'm going to put this into a routine, and I'm going to do this. And like I said, even if things that are not really work related, but you set time for them. You got up to go to take a break about 10:15, whether it was a smoker's break, or in my case, a non-smoker's break. You got to walk around and do something. You got to visit with your coworkers. Set some time like that, and show, that you're still trying to do some semblance of normal during this time. I think that's really important. And then, I think one of the things that really drew me to seeing this is that if you're a primary person in your household and you're mentally stressed, those around you that live with you feed off of that. I mentioned that if you're the leader of your company, your employees feed off of your state of mind. So that adds a whole nother layer of stress that you have to deal with. But just being in your household and being stressed out means that you're going to be, if you have kids, be snippy with with everything, with your kids, with your spouse, siblings, peers, roommates, wherever you live. I think that's a big effect, because it continues to reverberate with those around you. We all talk about today having a bubble, and this bubble is around like people who we want to associate with that are maybe not just around our immediate circle. And what does that do for you, and how does that work, and how does that impact, and if you can create that even from a professional perspective, set the ground rules and do that could help minimize some of your stress. But I am going to be open for a couple of questions here, so I will open it up.
Okay, first of all, Ed, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your story. And I'm going to give you a little pushback. I'm
Okay.
going to say that I think the best motto is to live long and prosper.
I knew you were going to reference my Yoda.
Yeah. I'm a Star Trek
I'm a
fan,
Star Trek
so
fan
I'm a
too.
Trekkie.
I like them both, so
Yeah,
that's okay.
so I came late to the party with the Star Wars versus Star Trek thing, so I'm a Trekkie. But I think live long and prosper, I think,
I
is a
like it.
great motto for everyone to live by.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is very socially distant.
yeah, you know what? That is absolutely great.
So
Yeah.
the Vulcans had it right, so you're good.
Yeah, they had it right all along. Absolutely. No hugging, no
That's right.
touching, just this, and
That's right.
everybody's good. So
That's right.
I love it. That is perfect. So you said a lot of great things that I took some notes about, and you said something that made me feel like a genius. Like, for one thing, I've always said that I'm a realistic optimist. And that is something that I've always said to my kids, that, even as a person of faith, because I'm a pastor.
Yep.
So, there's this misconception that if you're a person of faith, you tend to be unrealistic about your approach to life. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I feel like that it's important to have optimism, which is,
It
our
is.
faith. But I think that even with faith, you can be realistic. So how do you merge those two things together? Give me a little bit more information about the
Yeah.
realistic optimism.
So, and depending on what your position is in whatever role you do from a business perspective,
Hmm.
you are going to have a level of credibility.
Hmm.
And so, if you understand that optimism is a motivator,
Yes.
but when people see your optimism, if it's not tempered with any type of reality, because they
Hmm.
can tune on the news and look at their friends and see what's going on in their community, you start to lose that credibility, and that can erode your ability to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's from a business, whether it's from the pulpit, whether whatever it is in life you're trying to do. So you've really got to temper that optimism with what we're seeing, because people will then stop listening. And if
Hmm.
they stop listening and your message isn't getting out, you're not going to sell your service, you're not going to convert these people, and you're not going to bring more to do business with you. So you really just have to kind of look at things and understand, I can't control these.
Hmm.
What you're seeing on the news is probably not something that I can control. So I'm going to acknowledge it and see, how do I do business now with that stuff going on, and tune it
Right.
out. And that's kind of one of the things also that I also throw out as a tip right now, is that, if you can tune off the news, tune it off, because man, that can
Hmm.
get you down and depressed and raise your anxiety
Yes.
easily. So, tuning that out and reading a book, or whatever, or talking to a friend, is gonna make you feel a little more relief mentally,
Hmm.
than watching the tube. Now, of course, you can still binge good stuff like Discovery for Star Trek fans, or The Mandalorian for Star Wars fans.
Right. We've
but
got new
but
material.
those are escapes, and those are
Mhm.
good. And if you can find an escape, that's going to give you some mental relief too. Just understand that escapes that aren't addressing what's causing your anxiety and your stress level are only going to be short-term fixes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
cool.
Well, thank you so much for expounding on that and for
Yeah.
answering that question. And I think that's a great segue to bring in Yashi. I'm going to read her bio because the work that she has done, I think, is a perfect blend of realistic optimism. So we're going to welcome in Yashi. I'm going to read her bio for just a moment. And as she gets set up and gets situated, and I'm really excited about hearing what she has to say. So, Yashi Brown is an author, writer, poet, public speaker, and leading voice in the mental health space since 2011. Yashi's poetry became her chosen creative expression upon experiencing severe bipolar depression and mania symptoms as a young adult. Fueled by her deep spirituality and a burning desire to empower herself and others, Yashi realized her recovery journey. Today, she is an award-winning mental health advocate, artist, and public speaker, thriving with bipolar type 1. Yashi's poetry, spoken word, and story of recovery has been featured on the Today Show, Fox News, CNN In Session, HuffPost, Rise, Sirius XM, CBS, ABC, all these other alphabets, a whole lot of other things, a whole lot of other places she's accomplished. Uh, so Yashi, she has published mental health pieces for Thrive Global, Huffington Post, NAMI National, NAMI Advocate, and our HHS department, with the focus on recovery and its many faces, with self-empowerment, eliminating self-imposed stigma and manifestation. So I could go on and on and on. I went on YouTube last night and I listened to some of her pieces, and I could sit and listen to her all day. So instead of hearing me read about her, we are going to hear from the woman, the myth, the legend herself. Yashi, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. You
Hey,
guys hear me
Yashi.
okay?
Yes, we can, and
Hi.
we can hear you. Good to see you.
Good to see you as
So I
well.
think the burning question is, are you a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan?
Star Wars,
Wars.
more so. But you want to know something? I'm not too terribly familiar. I
With
never
the
closely followed either one. So if I had to choose one, it would be more Star Wars. But because just the overall themes, however, X-Men asked me about
Oh, there
that,
you
and I
go.
probably could like go on a tangent. So
Awesome. Well, good.
I'm
Well,
not
no,
totally ungeeked in that
that's
way, you know.
that's right. We had a discussion earlier with Jonafa and I and Pastor Jonafa, and
Oh
so
yes, okay,
we were just
makes
talking about
sense.
that. So we wanted to get your take on that. But now jumping into our fireside chat here, and
Yes,
tell me a little bit about some of the changes. People who when the pandemic hit,
yeah,
a lot of people had to pivot. A lot of people
yeah.
had to change, and sometimes they had to change their business altogether, change how they're doing business, how they're putting forth.
Uh-oh, I just lost sound. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So how did the change with the pandemic affect you, and how did you pivot?
You know, when the pandemic hit in March, I immediately overbought. But the good news is I didn't go into stores. I just was online
Yeah.
buying stuff online, and I was by myself. So my main thing, I was traveling at the time, still, in the month of March doing engagements.
Hmm.
And I was so concerned about, um, you know, I have a grandmother who's 90 and my mother is 70.
Oh wow.
And so so I was really concerned about, and, everybody's health. And I immediately quarantined myself. So I was actually going to quarantine back in February.
Wow.
And my main concern again was trying to maintain a healthy environment for myself and my loved ones, but especially my loved ones.
Hmm.
And being in that mindset really helped me make and formulate decisions that would benefit everyone. So again, I wasn't so resistant to what the news was telling me. I had a friend that had sent me information on the virus back in January, early
Wow.
January, when it was hitting Wuhan, and saying that our news wasn't covering it enough and talking about it in more detail. So I kind of knew that this was a little bit coming, but it did sneak up immediately all at once. And when it did, I was aware of what was already happening. So I felt like the pivot was a little bit easier from the standpoint of I wasn't as shocked as the whole world was when we had to shut down. I kind of had a feeling we were going to have to shut down immediately. California was one of the earlier states to do so. And then, so I was really kind of prepared in that way, emotionally and mentally. And I think when you're already dealing with emotional challenges, if you've had to deal with that sort of challenge in your life, you're used to having to pivot and regulate, and you're used to having to work with your emotions when challenges come up. So it's kind of a muscle that's already been going, and you're able to deal with it a little bit easier. So I'll say that's what happened with COVID. Now, when the George Floyd situation happened a few months down
Yeah.
the line, that was definitely triggering for me. And that's when I noticed more of a struggle. And that's another conversation, but definitely the difference in the two was quite interesting.
And so how did you approach, because your business is really promoting you, and
Mhm.
engaging with people and talking about, be
I'm losing sound again. I don't have sound. Hello? Uh-uh.
okay, I don't know why that keeps
There
doing
you
that.
go.
Okay. Yeah, so with the fact that you had to to engage with folks. How did that change the approach on how you were going to, support your livelihood? And, how how was your adoption of, technology to spread the message and advocate? What was
I think I got most of your question. The sound is kind of going out again, but it's so funny. I'm one of those people that was very affected by this pandemic and how it affected my work. So I'm actually in that transition right now. I'm creating a course that is going to pretty much be able to transfer most of ideas that I was really coming into working with other people on at the beginning of the year when it comes to manifesting and visualization, and putting that into more of a course that incorporates your creativity. That's how I've had to, make the shift, because it's so funny. I was watching a program. The financier, his name is Ray Dalio. He was actually speaking on TED right after the pandemic hit, talking about how those who are going to be able to ride this wave, this interesting wave, whatever you want to call it, are those who can adapt and shift. Those who are staying rigid to old ways and rigid to the old way of doing things are going to have a tougher time, if not sink. As far as this pandemic is concerned. So from that point forward, and that was a little earlier on when I saw that, I was starting to think of what are the new and innovative ways for me to approach my work, my message, as well as to deliver it to the audience. So in the meantime, I took on different live stream Zoom events in the month of May. And in the month of, early in the month of May, Mental Health Month, which is normally a busy speaking month for me, I took on those events so that I can have public appearance and so that I could be seen by others, and keep the message going. Because again, it's all about just continuing to stay positive and feel good. In those times of isolation, it was so important for me to figure out ways to feel good, to do activities, to take inventory of the things that I wanted to do and wasn't able to do in the past. And then the financial aspect of it definitely was impactful.
Yeah.
But I had to remember I wasn't alone.
Right.
Others were going through what I was going through. And so by compartmentalizing it in that particular way, I was able to again get outside of myself, which is so important, that we get outside of ourselves, see what's going on around, how we are part of this macrocosm, how we're part of something, and then we're able to create waves. Our creativity, we start tapping into that and we adapt.
Excellent. 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 All right, Pastor Jonafa, you.
Yeah, okay, so great. So the one thing that I keep hearing over and over again is the word adaptation. And the other word is change. And the ability for us to be able to adapt consistently and to change consistently. So I think that that's the going theme when we're talking about mental health and mental wellness, in particularly in this season, and being able to make those necessary changes and adapt. And you said something, Yashi, that I think is so important, that those who are able to ride this wave are going to be the ones who are able to adapt. It's the difference between sinking and swimming. So that's really, really, really important. That's something that I've been able to take away. And it's something that I've had to experience. And even with my ministry, we have provided mental health sessions for our parishioners, for our members. We have mental health professionals that have come in and actually had Zoom fellowship instead of our Sunday morning messages. We're actually doing Zoom mental health sessions with people, and we actually have nutritionists coming in that are actually helping people to take this downtime, since we're not able to eat at restaurants anyway, to learn how to eat better and cook and change your diet so that we can actually see what we can do ourselves to kind of help fight off the infection and to stay well. So thank you for the chat that you guys are engaging in right now. It's really beneficial, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. So I think what we're doing next, if I'm not mistaken, is that we're going to have a segment with Yashi, and that we're going to hear a video. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's because I know we're a little bit ahead of the schedule right now. So, so if we could just go ahead and go with that, I think that would be the next thing that we actually scheduled to do, is for Yashi to have the self-care and creativity session. I can't hear. Okay. Technology is a bugger. So we're just trying to work out the technology just for a moment. So just be patient with us. Still no sound. Yeah. So no sound right now. So I think Ed is asking the question, how do you refocus when you're stressed? What do you do? I know you mentioned the George Floyd situation, and what I'm finding is that even within the pandemic and in this crisis, there are more crises that are inside of this particular overall global crisis that we're experiencing. And then, of course, we have our own personal crises. So how do you refocus when you get stressed, when you have new triggers on top of other stressors that you're dealing with?
Well, it's a combination. I try to make sure, first of all, on an actual physical, from a physical space, that I'm getting my sleep, and that I do take regular medication and treatment for my mental health condition. In the video, it explains, of course, we talked about, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1. So it's interesting, from the beginning of the year, I went vegan. And so that it was a great change, because it altered my medicines that I take, some that I've been on since 2008. So that was a really interesting revelation. So
yes,
that had to actually get adjusted this year around the time of all these changes. So it's like this all came about at the same time. But I make sure that I'm following my treatment and getting my rest. Food intake, what you're eating, is very key. And then once all of those things are aligned, now I have to also make sure that I'm doing my self-care, self-help, spiritual inner work, that inner work, which is meditation, prayer. I really rely on prayer, and try to always incorporate some sort of a reading or something that is positive, information and wisdom that I'm taking in, that's resonating with wherever I'm at in my life in that moment. That always has a central theme of bringing together oneness and people coming together. But there's so many amazing writers, authors down through the years. Spirituality is key in that balancing work. So yeah, that's the combination. It's the chemical, or what we're taking in our bodies, physical, mental, all of it. And that is, they are inseparable. They all work together.
Absolutely. I would have to agree with you. I went plant-based or vegan about a year ago, and I would have to say that that has made a huge difference in terms of being able to manage the stress. And that's why I felt I was compelled to bring in a nutrition piece to the members of my ministry. And I felt like that was just so important. And it's interesting that you said that the medications, shifted as a result of you changing your diet. So there's a
Absolutely.
scripture. Yeah, there's a scripture that I live by, and it has been kind of the theme for 2020. And it's that beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prosper. So when we talk about people being in peace, it's the word shalom, and shalom means wholeness, that we should be whole, mind, body, and soul. So the spiritual piece, the physical piece, the physical piece, all of that, it works together. So
Yeah.
I think that is a really great point, and I love that you are bringing in the whole aspect of it. And I think that is so important that people would pay attention to every aspect of their lives. Even if you are a spiritual person, it's still important for you to be physically well. And, it's still important for you to be mentally well. You can't have one without the other. So what advice would you give someone who may be coming into this year and they are experiencing for the first time some mental health issues that may have been underlying, but maybe they ignored it, or maybe there have been some triggers or some things new that have brought that to the forefront? What would you say to someone who's just now coming to the realization that they need to seek help?
Oh gosh, I would just let them know that they're not alone, that I would reiterate things they've been seeing and hearing. So hopefully, reiterating it, at least from my space, somebody who experiences and who really can tell both sides, reassure them that this is very much so treatable. They are not alone, and to be patient with themselves. Do not be hard on yourself.
Right.
Allow yourself to understand, to get to know why these contrasts, why these disruptions and distortions are happening within your body, within your spirit. This is a call to learn. This is a call to understand yourself as well as your fellow man. So when you really look at it from these angles, it will help you, again, understand our universe, but understand yourself and use it as an opportunity to, again, be patient and to learn. The information is out there and the help is out there. Now, also take the steps to try to see what help you has. There's different foundations. I'd like to say NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There's the Campaign to Change Direction, which talks about the 5 signs. If somebody's wondering if they're suffering from a real mental health break or something that is more significant than just having a bad day, there's signs. There's actual signs so that you can test yourself. And then from there, there's coping mechanisms and techniques and steps to seeing a doctor, a professional practitioner. So that is changedirection.org. It's a good one to go to as well. My friend Barbara Van Dalen, she heads that. And other foundations that are out there, JED Foundation, I work closely with JED, J-E-D, foundation.org. They specialize and work with young people in colleges across the U.S. And again, with helping people navigate this space in what does it mean? This is a new space. What does it entail? How do I get the help? These organizations are there to help you not feel alone, but also take the necessary steps in order to feel better, to gain empowerment so that you can help yourself. And also take note of your environment. It's so important to take note of what types of energies are in our environment. Really important. So much of this is energy. Energy is connected to our environment. Being in an environment that reflects, a healthy mental disposition is hard sometimes to attain when you're in a negative mental disposition, but maybe that's a moment where you can call on a friend, a loved one, and help assess your environment and how is that exacerbating your symptoms? How is that exacerbating negative emotions versus life-giving, thriving emotions? Just
Right.
things to think about. I'm kind of not even tipping the iceberg, but I don't want to overwhelm. But these are essential, like foundational things, fundamental things to go, to tackle and to get a move on.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Those were all great tips, and hopefully, some of the organizations that you referenced, that people will be able to write those things down. So right now, we are trying to decide which direction that we're going to take. We're going to have networking soon, probably around 11 o'clock. So I'm asking. Jenny and Corinna, whether or not we're going to do the video. So yes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to try the video now. So hopefully they've gotten the technical difficulties worked out. So let's try the video.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yashi Brown, and I hope you guys are really enjoying this amazing summit over the last few days, and feel very honored to be able to speak to you about a topic that is very close to my heart, and that is care. The two are one in the same, and that's because creativity is a way of purging and transmuting energy that might be blocked and needs expressing, energy that is trying to come through. At the same time, when we go in and we start to do those activities that lend to self care, which might be taking in wisdom, reading, meditating, and speaking to loved ones and people that are in our inner circle, this is another way that our creativity can grow. Because from these experiences, it only adds to the expressions that we're giving and that we're bringing out into the world. And so I always like to say that it's a mutual back and forth, um, symbiotic, mutually symbiotic relationship between the two when it comes to self care, self help, as well as our creativity. In my case, it's poetry. I am a mental health advocate, and I'm also a poet, and I am a public speaker that speaks on the topic of mental wellness and how to take care of our mental health. I'm someone who was diagnosed with bipolar type 1 and went through several, I guess you can say, moments, ups and downs. What would you consider the typical uh, back and forth of someone who experiences those type of mental health challenges? But I was so blessed to be able to come through it on the other side. And I can honestly say that I wouldn't change anything now that I've been able to experience everything that I've been able to experience and know the difference and come out with the amount of empathy and as well as how it's aided to the creativity so that it could help others. And that's what this is all about, is about giving back. It's about helping others in this cycle of, again, how we take in food and energy and knowledge and wisdom for ourselves, and then how that in turn aids our creativity. And at the same time, how our creativity reflects our emotions and insights, inspirations, channelings, whatever it is that we might be coming through and bringing through our creativity. We want to nurture and make sure those outlets are constantly being activated. And so I'm here to talk about what's helped me in this whole process. And then I'm also going to share a poem at the end of this. So Number one, I think being open about having a mental health challenge, having a mental health condition, talking about it and talking about it in a very frank and matter of fact way has really been a major part of the healing process. It's allowed me to connect with people that don't feel like they can use their voice or open up and talk about feeling sad, uh, not feeling very productive, feeling depressed, or maybe some individuals might have more severe symptoms, kind of like the ones that I had, where you might have delusions or have symptoms of psychosis. I talk about these things in daylight, and, as if I'm talking about, I had the flu the other day. Literally, it's like literally that. Um, I don't think of it any different. It's just a condition that sometimes, if left to its own devices and without the treatments that I've been blessed to now have, without that, yes, I would be in a hospital. I've experienced hospitalizations before. But then at the same time, coming now back on the other side and having gone through treatment, I can honestly say all of this has been part of a sharpening and an evolution of my soul, of my spirit, of my creativity, and my sense of humanity. So I'm able to look at everything through a lens of gratefulness that I am here today, and hopefully with the knowledge that I do have and how I've been able to come back and be on this side of it, share it, and make the path easier for others that are experiencing these same symptoms, whether it's severe depression, whether it's bipolar, whether it's schizoaffective, you've experienced delusions, or whether it's just needing to know how to deal with a bad day, bad news, understanding that this is all transitory and that we're constantly in flow. Nothing has to last forever. So much is in our power. And how do we take that power back? Um, I've been so blessed to have connected with different authors and different spiritual seekers over the years that have connected and helped me find my path, helped me find myself, and how I want to express, and find that connection with the universe, because it's about, again, feeling not disconnected, but always knowing that we are connected, and feeling that connection is so important. And so, those voices that give rise to that same message is what I'm all about. Uh, Understanding the power of meditation, of the chakra centers, of the energy centers in our body, um, the humble nature that goes with learning and being a student of these different sciences and of these different wisdom and teachings that are out there. Again, constantly wanting to learn so that I can be of service and so we can be of service, because that's when we really feel our best. That's when we really feel good, is when we are able to give that and feel that connection. We're at a time now with COVID-19 and with being quarantined or social distancing, we're having to go into a space that we're not very comfortable with. We're being very aware of our bodily contact in a way that might be uncomfortable. But again, going back to being a student and wanting to learn, why are we in this place? What can we learn from being in this place? How do we empower ourselves and empower others? And being humble at the same time is so important. It's going to help us get through this time period and come out stronger on the other side. So, with that being said, I'm going to read you a poem. I'm going to leave you with these words, and just good health to you. And I just want to continue to impress how powerful it is, continuing to just prayer, spirituality, and how that channels through to our creativity and whatever your creative outlet is, making sure you continue to supplement it with experiences and with knowledge and anything else that can aid in bringing much more love and light into this universe.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Brown, for your inspirational story. Thank you for your encouraging words. Thank you for all of the resources that you've shared with us and the wonderful advice to us. We appreciate it so much. So, unfortunately, it looks like the technology is giving us a lot of problems today, and her poem cut off. I really wanted to hear that. Um, so, we're going to move on for right now. Bummer, I know I really wanted to hear the rest of her poem. But what I wanted to do now is take the time to move us into the next segment. We're going to have our Q&A. We're going to have networking segments. But before we move into that, I want to acknowledge the planners and sponsoring partners for the San Marcos Global Entrepreneurship Week program. Chairing the effort is Ms. Karina Boston Pinellas of Splash Co-working, Claudette Blythe, founder of Modern Tribes Events and chair with the Dunbar Heritage Association, Sean Bold, founder of SimPulse, new venture entrepreneur in residence at Texas State University Star Park, the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Texas State University, and Barbara Thomason, Director of Workforce Development, Business Retention and Expansion at the Greater San Marcos Partnership, the Regional Economic Development Organization for Hays and Caldwell counties. So we want to say thank you to all of our entrepreneurs and our sponsors this week. And right now we have a unique way to allow you to interact and create connections with something that we call chat roulette or chat roulette, depending on what part of the country you're from, you pronounce it. It is a way that we pair up with attendees, then scramble you up again so that you get to meet as many people virtually as possible in the allotted time. We will scramble for about 15 minutes and then transition to the vendor booths, which is a virtual platform that is not to be missed. So we want to encourage you to be able to jump back on, to hop in, um, and click on some of those networking sessions and hop in and get ready to network and play games and meet other people back in the hop in platform. All right, thank you and welcome back. Thank you for participating to this week's Global Entrepreneurship Week for day 3. I think I've got some feedback here. There we go. All right, so thank you for participating in day 3 of our Global Entrepreneurship Week. We want to say thank you to all of our participants, Dr. Ryan Wakim, to our keynote speaker, Ed Rios, and poet Yashi Brown. So make sure that you freely visit our vendor and entrepreneurship booths for good information and virtual giveaways. They will remain open until at least 12 noon. Be sure you have collected your scavenger hunt items for today. And also make sure you check out the Dunbar Heritage Association Black Business Expo in collaboration with Modern Tribes Events. That is a virtual event on this same link, Thursday and Friday, which is tomorrow and the next day, from 12 to 2, and Saturday as a hybrid event at the LBJ Library in downtown San Marcos. I'm going to sign off and let you interact at your own pace. So please be sure to log in with us tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. if you want to learn about tinctures. Then at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, we continue Global Entrepreneurship Week with our theme, Get Business Fit. Another big thank you to our sponsors, to our speakers, and to our participants. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.